What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm the Crockneck, and I have an album review for you. Once again, this one is brought to us courtesy of Screaming Toilet. It's a fun site full of reviews on all sorts of things, pop culture, movies, TV shows, there's podcasts, there's music reviews, even outside of us. And it's a pretty good time. I would definitely recommend checking it out, and there will be a link below in the description. So today I am reviewing The Howling Void and their EP, Runa. Now this originally came out March 9th of 2013, but was reissued October 24th of 2014 on Avant-Garde Music. This is a funeral doom band slash symphonic funeral doom band that formed in Austin, Texas in 2007, and it is a one-man band. Ryan Wilson plays every instrument in the studio. He is also the lone member of Numa Hagen, which is a black and death metal project that he fronts as well, which is really, really cool too. This is his first EP, though there are 7 full lengths in there as well, and I have yet to hear any of the full lengths, so this is my first exposure to the band in general. And I'm not entirely sure funeral doom is necessarily the most accurate descriptor, because this has a lot of different elements in it. The opener, Iminsul, which is a pagan like pillar religious structure, I guess, has all sorts of different elements, namely I think like sludge metal. The guitar tone is very like blackened sludge. That is pretty much what I pictured. It kind of remind me a lot of Church Burn in terms of their really nasty tone, but it doesn't have the fullness in it. The recording is a little rough. I think the drums are done by a drum machine, but in terms of the writing, it's really interesting. All the symphonic elements are synthesized, but they're used very well. Like there's a lot of droning synths that sort of back up the big riffs. One thing this album is definitely short on is vocals. Vocals are generally sort of a like ambient sort of croon or whisper. They're very, very light, and they're generally back in the mix. So there were points on here where I didn't even notice they had disappeared because the music kept going. And musically, there are a lot of elements of post-metal. Like there's a good chunk of this album that remind me of a mix of Paradise Lost and Neurosis. Lots of interesting build-ups. There's actually a really cool part in this opening track where everything drops out with the synths, and then you start hearing a drum beat, then another drum beat on top, some cymbal accents, and it keeps building until it gets back to the main riff. And really, really lush melodies on here too. Like the sound is very, very full. Now by the time I got to the second track, I was kind of noticing that funeral doom, again, might not be the most accurate descriptor for this, because it doesn't have that overbearing depressive quality. It's definitely sullen or morose, and granted, yeah, I'm splitting hairs there in terms of words, but like depressive has more weight to it. This just feels kind of sad, like more along the lines of gothic stuff. Now this one actually had a cool little vocal part, but again, just for a little bit. There was actually some harmonizing with the ambient keys in the background, which I thought was really cool. And they also bring in some rainstorm samples, and there were even like some horns in there, which I thought was really cool. Now it doesn't necessarily scream symphonic, just because you can tell it's all very synthesized, and it really doesn't like try to sound super real. But the fact that it's so layered and there's a lot of cool like sounds across this entire thing definitely makes it have like a real full sound. And as far as guitar work, generally there is one big prevailing riff on these songs, and then like some cool atmospheric stuff. Like there's a clean tremolo that builds up in here, and that actually popped up in the first track too, and I believe it's on the last track, The Wolf and the Eclipse, which is an interesting thing because looking this up, this EP was only the first 2 tracks. This one was actually recorded in 2014 and added just for this release, I believe. And this is the only part on this EP that has a section I would call flat out funeral doom. It pretty much just drops to the slowest pace I think that's on here, and it has that heavy, like, you know, every riff hits on the downbeat. It is all super heavy and depressive, and that's the only section where I think it's really funeral doom, but it only lasts for a little bit before going back into the main bulk of the song, which I like the way these songs are constructed. They bring in a lot of different elements. Like there's some really cool tribal rhythms on here, but my main issue is the songs sound similar in terms of like the dynamics they use. They are kind of repeated throughout. They're just kind of placed differently in each song. And they all have kind of a similar feel to them. Except for the last track with that big Funeral Doom break. That was actually probably the biggest moment in here where I thought, wow, that's really different. But overall, I thought this was a pretty solid EP, and it definitely has me curious to listen to the full lengths for sure. So I'm going to give it 3 stars. It is only 3 tracks, and granted, I think this album clocks 27 minutes, which I've had full lengths that are shorter. It does get repetitive after a little while, and I do think what he does is really cool in terms of mixing in a lot of different layers and really just, building some immense songs. It's just some of that is repeated a little bit too much in the other tracks, just, in different spots. Still, if you're a giant Funeral Doom fan or you like gothic metal in general or doom metal in general, I definitely recommend checking this band out. So, if you like the review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you later.